Eyewitness News begins with breaking news.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. I'm Devin Bartolotta. We just heard from the mayor, the New Orleans Mayor Latoya Cantrell, just a few moments ago, answering questions for the first time in quite a while. And joining me now is Eyewitness News political analyst and Gambit columnist Clancy DuBos. You listened to this whole thing here. What's your first key takeaway, I would say, from this?
Well, I think the mayor kept her cool, which was important because she's come under a lot of criticism in the last week on several fronts for sitting in court with the family of a juvenile offender who was already convicted of, I think, 5 carjackings at gunpoint, and the victims were across the aisle sitting together aghast that the mayor was there, and that became a sensational story for obvious reasons. It looked like the mayor was backing the perpetrator and ignoring the victims. And I'm going to come back to that in a minute, but she also talked about her travel, her expensive travel arrangements, where she has gone to several other continents and signed sister cities agreements, which are basically ceremonial things that most people think don't amount to a whole lot. And she said, well, no, this is part of me representing the city and being a cultural ambassador for the city. I have to tell you, I spent almost 10 years on the board of directors of the predecessor to New Orleans and Company. It was the New Orleans Metropolitan Convention and Visitors Bureau, or the CVB, the agency that is now called New Orleans and Company. In the 10 years that I was on that board, I didn't take a single trip. But, you know, Steve Perry, who I was one of the ones who hired him, traveled extensively and had a staff that traveled. Occasionally the mayor would travel. I don't know of any mayor, and I've been a reporter in this town for more than 49 years, I don't know of any mayor who traveled this extensively in a 6-month or 8-month period. Dutch Morial traveled, Lou Landrieu traveled, Mitch Landrieu, Mark Morial, Sidney Bathala, all of them, Ray Nagin, but not that much. You know, our partners at the Times-Picayune reported, and we reported that it was something like $80,000 since the first of the year and growing. And
like France, I think, were criticized as well. It was like 17.
And she said, well, you know, I'm there it's part of my job to promote economic development, which is true, which is absolutely correct. But she she made the statement, and she's trying to make the point that because she's there, more international travelers are going to come to the city. I don't know that they necessarily are going to come here because the mayor went there. You know, I'm fixing to go to England in a little while with my wife. We're going for a wedding. If the mayor of London came here, I don't know that I'd go to London just because the mayor of London came here. I think we'd more want to see, you know, somebody, you know, if the Queen came, that would be one thing, but, you know, it's not the same. I think when people around the world think of New Orleans, and I know this from my own involvement in the effort to bring people to the city, they think of jazz, they think of our architecture, they think of our food. We probably get much more people to come if we send some of our chefs over to Paris, or some of our musicians over to Singapore, you know, and all around the world. Those are the best cultural ambassadors. It's nice that the mayor goes, but it's nice for the mayor more than it's nice for the economy.
Now, she talked a little bit about, I want to go back to the juvenile defender because that was a really big story. For those of you that have not been following this, the mayor came under harsh criticism for sitting with the family of a juvenile suspect in a carjacking.
He'd actually been convicted by that time.
Yes,
and it was his sentencing hearing.
And so she said that she's done this before and that this is part of a program, but you and I were talking before we started and saying, why didn't she just come out and say that right away whenever whenever it started?
Two main points on that. First of all, as you just mentioned, Devin, the mayor has a program, which is a good program. It's called the Pathways Program, and it's about getting juvenile offenders to take a different path. And she talked about that, and she's a very good advocate and spokesperson for that program. But it's been, according to the mayor herself, it's been a very good program for quite some time. So why did it take the mayor almost a week to come out and say, this is why I was there? And one of the pieces of new information that we got was that, according to the mayor, the young man's family, as a teenager, the young juvenile's family, requested that she go and support him. But it's still up to the mayor to decide the appropriateness of that. because every time the mayor, whether it's Latoya Cantrell or any big city mayor in America or any of her predecessors or her successors, when a big city mayor opens his or her mouth, it's news. When a big city mayor shows up somewhere, it sends a message. And mayors and governors and presidents and council members, all elected officials at a certain level, have to be very cognizant of what messages they are sending, depending on what they do, what they say, and where they go. And, you know, Barack Obama was criticized for wearing a tan suit, for goodness sakes. That was ridiculous. But, you know, people take all sorts of cues from high elected officials. So, to me, if she really wanted to mentor this young person and have an impact on his life, she could have done even more by going to his home and spending an hour in his living room with him and his mom or him and his grandfather, because she's mentioned that he's now living with his grandfather and he's on the right path. But, you know, and she said she showed love to the victims. That's not the way the victims see it. The victims don't see it that way at all.
Well, Clancy DuBos joining me here. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be back in just a few minutes.